grown up like I'm an anxious person, or I'm as a kind of insecure person, or vice versa. It could be I'm a kind of a little bit of an arrogant person. Mm-hmm. To like notice that within our own mind, within our own self, is not easy thing to do, and that's the work. Mm-hmm. It's not fun to do at first, but over time it becomes kind of fun in a certain way, because you know you're about to make yourself happier.
You're listening to The Madeline Moon Show, a dating and relationship podcast that will bloom open your wild expression, deepen your emotional range, and expand your capacity for mythic love. Jai Dev Singh is a yogi, mystic, and internationally renowned teacher. He is the founder of Life Force Academy, LFA, a global school for the yogic arts with students in over 120 countries. His work encompasses multifaceted trainings in Kundalini Yoga, Ayurveda, and yogic astrology, forming the cornerstone of LFA's substantive approach to Dharma practice. Hey, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you here today.
Thanks so much. So fun to be here.
Yeah. So I discovered you, I think it was probably now 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. I had a friend that was kind of doing some mentorship with me and was like, you have to start doing the prosperity mornings here with Jai Dev.
Oh, cool.
And I had done a few different Kundalini online practices before, and I would go through these seasons of entering and being like, yes, the prosperity 40-day commitments, I'm getting into this. And they were always so epic, really epic. But when I found yours, there was something so unique in your artistry that made the whole experience like you entered this like yogic portal of beauty, which I found like it was so like nourishing in a way. And like, I felt filled up on multiple levels. And then I left it for a bit of time. And then last year I was going through a pretty deep grieving portal when I was actually separating from my partner who I'm with again.
Oh, wow.
But we were separating and we used to watch your stuff together. Uh-huh. And then I was like, I'm not right. So that was his thing. It's not my thing. Because I was always kind of motivated by him.
Sure.
But I was like, you know what? Actually, I really feel called to like step back into his sphere, like for my own practice, myself. And your work and your classes held me through such a deep time of winter. Like it was actually winter in my heart. And I grew to form my own like deep bond with you and like your work and your teachings, and what you're doing is so it's so special, and how grounded it is, yet how ancient it is. So I'm really grateful for everything that you do.
Thank you. Thanks so much for saying all that. That's so lovely to hear. Yeah, I love doing it, and I work with so many wonderful creative people that are part of just our crew that helps make all of those, special. But yeah, it's born out of really what I've been doing my entire adult life. It just kind of caught me, and as an 18-year-old. And
wow.
Yeah, I grew up in the southeast of the U.S. Bible Belt as a Jewish kid, and then but then when I turned 18, because there's really no yoga in the southeast at that point.
What's the southeast? Where were you?
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and nothing. You couldn't find yoga studios really around where I lived or anything. And then I went to school in Tennessee near Nashville in the recording industry, working with, I'm a music person, and I've always been a music person. Even in Life Force Academy, as you experience, some of my favorite things of what we're doing is the music we're creating.
Yeah.
And just how evocative it is, and how helpful it is to like facilitate meditative states and healing states, because when we're all going through difficult things, whether you're coming together in a relationship or you're separating in a relationship, these are like the tide coming in and the tide going out. This is life, and the circumstances of life are unpredictable. But what we can always do is it kind of take care of our inner world that is always interacting with the circumstances of life. And that's what that, to me, is like what it's all about, is like making sure that my inner world it remains rich. And that takes work. That takes constant work, constant work just to stay connected to it, But then I don't know how you experience it, but my experience is that eventually that work is like really, it is work. Like even, I do some practice every day and have as pretty much as long as I can remember. And it's still, there's a part of it that is work, like working out, like going to the gym, but mostly it's like a love affair. It's just something I love. And it's always when I eventually get myself to do it. And even to this day, I still like to procrastinate and like
your practice.
Yeah. Totally. And, I just like to, wait till the last moment sometimes until I only have enough time. But then I'm always like, why did I do that? Because it always ends up being the best part of my day. And then I still want to keep going when it's time. I got to go though, because it's householder work. It's like meditation practice, but for people who live in the world, people who are entrepreneurs or have a job or are coming into a relationship, and you want to do that in your best self, or you're splitting up, having a separation, and you want to do that in your best self, and all of that. So just staying connected to who we are and and creativity and, the good things in life.
Yeah. I also love so much how creativity is such an important piece of Kundalini. And at least the way that I hear you talk about Kundalini is like that's what life force is. There's so many ways that we look at life force, like our emotion is life force, our elation and our anger and our sexuality and our creativity. It's like all of this life force.
All of it. Yeah.
We don't really, as a society, like most people are not grown up to learn how to harness it, hold it, circulate it. And mostly it's about discharging it. Like, I don't want to feel this anger. How do I make it go away? Or I don't want to feel this desire. How do I make it go away? Or longing or pain and grief. And one of the things I've really experienced from any kind of yogic practice, anything that teaches me how to be with my breath, is how I learn to be a container, to hold instead of just leakily discharge or like try to get something out of my life. It's like, oh, actually, this can be a source of nectar for me. If I learn how to take it in even deeper, if I learn how to expand it even farther, which I feel like you can just experience so much of that in one practice that stretches you in your breath just a little more than you're comfortable with. And one of my edges of growth right now when I'm doing the practices is like your end portions where you have one specific posture that's held for a long period of time.
Yeah. But
by that point, I'm like, wow, I got these dishes. It's like that's the edge. It's like the activity of breathing and doing the breath practices when they're like fire and there's heat and there's movement and doing this and this and this. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But then when we get to the point where it's like, the one movement or being more in the stillness.
More like the meditation at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're in a posture, or you might have a breath going on.
Yeah. And it's towards the end. It's like the perfect spot for that more still practice to be at the same time that it's like the hardest spot for it to be, because you're like, oh, like I'm right there to almost being complete. And now the practice really begins, like dropping in even deeper.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's a thing for students? Have you noticed?
Well, I think generally, yes. Specifically, I think it's different for everyone, is my experience. And all along, I've had people come up to me like after classes, and they'll tell me about some experience they're having, whether it's like something really cool or something they're struggling with. And they're almost always different. You know, they're almost always different. One person this thing will bring them to that edge. Something else will bring someone else to that edge. But generally speaking, yes, it's the same. It takes us through some sort of kind of transformational process, really, where it does often bring you to your edge. But that could be also, as you know, a very subtle experience. When we say bringing us to our edge, it's like you're thinking, oh, the dishes are over there. It's bringing you to an edge of really like your emotional body and the subtle body, what the yogis talk about, like a subtle body, because we're not just these physical, dense things. You know, we're electromagnetic. We have life force. Chi. Anytime any of us are going to the acupuncture and needling, and you walk out of there, you feel so good. It's because they're working with your chi, you know, your life force. These are things that human beings have known about, you know, really since, I just say, time immemorial, because and it gets like put into like new age and woo-woo. It's not new age. It's been around far longer than modern medicine. Modern medicine's amazing, but it has a long way to go in its understanding of the subtle nature of the human being. And that's what the yogis in the Southeast Asia, the Eastern wisdom traditions, you know, held and took care of, not exclusively, but because all over the world, ancient peoples knew about all of these things. But it was really well preserved in these systems, you know, for instance, yoga and various other ones. And so we're going to our edge in also this subtle type of way that opens up things that often aren't as easily accessible to us when we stay in the ordinary thinking mind. And that's what I love about Kundalini Yoga. It seems to kind of pop open the subtle field. And that helps the radiance shine, I think. And that's what the Kundalini Yoga teachings talk about is when you work with your life force like that, and when you open up its channels, because they talk about how there's like 72,000 channels through which the chi, the life force, moves through the human body, mind, but three are most important. The three that are the central channel of the spine, that is the subtle correlate of the spine, and then the two channels that spiral around and end up at your left and right nostril. So human organisms, very sophisticated thing. And to kind of tap into its sophistication by opening up the channels. They say the channels aren't even there till the prana starts to flow. It's kind of quantum in nature, you know. And it gives us such a clarity, you know, and we're connected more to, we can feel like the true voice of our heart. And we can get in the real river current of what our life is all about, because all of us have the natural river current of our life. And we're all just trying to get in that flow of it, whether we're cognizant of it or not. We're trying to feel happy. And to feel happy, you have to feel meaningfulness in life. And when we lose sense of meaningfulness and purposefulness, we become more depressed and anxious. And so the work is staying connected to that, but the joy is being connected to that. So it's both work and it's joy. You know, it's not just, I got to do this to make myself better. No, the whole thing is you're already good, but it's tapping into that goodness, you know, making that be, you know, accessible.
You use the word purpose. And this has been something that I haven't like really questioned mine. Like my whole life, I always felt clear.
Yeah.
Even if it was changing, I was clear. Would go from here to here, and every time though, it was like, this is my purpose. This is what I'm doing. This is like, I live here now. This is all I do. And I've entered this state of my life for just really the first time where I don't know. It's like this really juicy, dark, cocoony space of like, wow, I feel that what brought the purpose, the source of the purpose, like if we were to look at purpose as a thing, you know, which I think is beautiful in some ways, it might be a mistake in other ways of thinking it is the thing. You know, that I'm transitioning into this time of my life where I've talked about this on the podcast already almost every episode of moving more into the chapter of motherhood, like feeling like this chapter of, okay, like the way I felt purpose before about what I'm here to do and build. It's like, oh, actually, purpose is like a child, like bringing baby and like nurturing baby and things like that. Anyways, all of this to say, the word dharma, I feel, gets used just a lot, and I use it a lot in my teachings. And I think that there's a deeper like understanding of dharma that maybe I don't grasp, or that people don't grasp, thinking that dharma is like purpose, and maybe they're different. And so I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
How you talk about those things.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a great thing to talk about because dharma, there's many meanings for the Sanskrit word dharma in many different contexts in which it's used in different traditions, but they're all connected. It's all the greatest meaning of dharma is reality. And it's reality itself. But some pointing at some sort of like supreme reality versus our relative reality. And relative reality is where all the things exist. When you say, I'm not sure if purpose should be a thing, like as a yoga teacher is a thing, to be a yoga teacher, to be a mother is a thing. Well, I do think the things are expression of purpose. And as you were pointing out, we have different seasons of our life. And in some seasons of our life, it'll be bringing a child into the world and raising a child. That's a big season. And that in of itself is definitely dharma for the person who is involved in that. How do you know? I always used to say, how do you know if you have a dharma for children? Like, do you have kids? Then yes.
That makes total sense.
And so, but I like to really think of, I think as you were alluding to, is dharma is it's this bigger river stream that is, you cannot put it in a box. You can't, it's not a career. Real dharma is not a career. And I think the modern world, Western world, modern world, I think we tend towards thinking about purpose with career orientation.
Yeah.
Especially like Capricorns like me, think career oriented, or at least we start out that way. That's what's interesting about astrology. It's just showing you your starting point. Like, this is kind of how you're wired. But it's not an ending point necessarily. We are all like blossoming into actually who we actually are. We're not stuck or static. We can shape it. And so I think of dharma as the purposefulness of life. And everybody does have some unique purpose, some unique, like we're all designed a little bit differently. My likes and dislikes are a little bit different than yours. Our talents and our weaknesses are all a little different, but that's also how we connect with each other is, sometimes we connect with each other because, we're the same, like we have this in common. Other times we connect with each other because, oh, we're so different. Oh, you're good at that. I couldn't imagine being good at that, and vice versa. And so we all have this unique, I think of us as like, we're all like unique instruments, like musical instruments. I think of like something like Kundalini Yoga practice as how you tune your instrument. But it's not like, I don't think of it like self-improvement in that there's something that really needs improving. Ultimately, relatively, yes, my mind needs improvement. The habits the narratives and the tendencies of my mind and my emotional body, my emotions and my desires, those in some areas need work in transformation. And the ones that need work in transformation are the ones that I've identified are causing me misery, causing me suffering. For instance, whatever patterns that are there that are perpetuating maybe insecurity tendency. And so those tendencies have, if any of us, we might have like grown up like, I'm an anxious person, or I'm as a kind of insecure person, or vice versa. It could be I'm a kind of a little bit of an arrogant person, and to like notice that within our own mind, within our own self, is not easy thing to do. Yeah. And that's the work. It's not fun to do at first. But over time, it becomes kind of fun in a certain way because you know you're about to make yourself happier with enough practice and work and also where it's not some like, there's no criticism that is happening. It's not some self-loathing process. It's recognizing that actually what obstructs my experience of like this really fantastic me is my kind of mind and emotional tendencies that are causing me to suffer and are causing others to suffer too. And I have to be real about that. That if the emotional tendencies that are causing me to suffer also add suffering sometimes to others. And then you feel compassionate about that.
Yeah.
Because suffering is real. We're all suffering. And if I can remember that, not just remember it philosophically, intellectually, but you remember it in your body. You feel your suffering, and then you can feel others suffering. And whether it's someone that's like, say you're going through a separation, and you remember the both is suffering. That's hard sometimes because you're really consumed by your own.
Yeah.
And then that other person is also like seemingly perpetuating your own suffering. But to remember that the suffering is a mutual thing. And then if I have compassion for my own suffering, I always feel like that's the starting point is with compassion, which compassion to me is the most essential thing on this spiritual path. And for this very reason, starting with a transformation of our own mind, is that in order for me to be real about my own tendencies, I need to be compassionate towards myself. Otherwise, it's too hard, it's too edgy, there's like self-criticalness, and you lose all the softness. And so when first is compassion for myself, then that becomes very natural to extend it to others. And then I can transform the patterns, because inside of compassion is also wisdom. It's not just the feminine, it's also the masculine. And it's both, always. And the Buddhists call that the bodhicitta, they call it the two wings of the same bird, wisdom and compassion. Because without wisdom, then compassion can be codependency. You need wisdom to set boundaries. You need wisdom to know how to kind of develop oneself, to be able to set enough of a boundary there so that I'm taking care of myself and taking care of my own predicament, so that I have the capacity to really live in that river current of purpose, of dharma. And so that's why it's nice to talk about dharma, because it gets you on this flow of talking about love and compassion and all the things that when we keep alive in our life, life is very beautiful. It doesn't have to be this facade spiritual thing. People don't have to feel like they need to change really anything. It's just becoming more of ourselves and letting that take over, But that will make you do courageous things.
Yeah, I really love that like the wings, because I noticed that there is a tendency, particularly right now with buzzwords / not just buzzwords, real, but like also buzzwords of narcissism and borderline disorder. And it's like everyone who has done wrong has this label. Yeah. Not for everybody, but because of the work that I'm in, I hear a lot of this, of like cutting certain people out of people's lives because they have a tendency to be narcissistic, or a tendency to be this, or a tendency to be that. So like, I can't talk to my dad anymore. I can't talk to him anymore. I can't talk. All these reasons to create very, 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 very thick, dense rules or boundaries. And I think I've had my own journey, a very deep one, and through the lens of karma and dharma, I can so see why I chose my family system. I can so see it all. And I had to go through a period of time where there was a lot of very thick boundaries to not talk to this family member for healing. I don't take any of that back. It was so important. Could I have used more compassion? Yes. And then there were periods where I had like compassion, but very few boundaries. And so really learning now, as I've gone through like a whole journey, a very thick journey with, like, can I trust this person? Can I trust myself? I didn't really receive those tools as a kid of like the compass to like know who to trust and who not. And for anyone who's had that in their life, it makes it very hard as an adult to know who to choose or who to trust.
Right.
And so it makes you not trust and choose yourself. And it gets things like very, very blurry. And I think that's for those who struggle with, like, is this person a narcissist? Can I trust this person? Can I not let them into my life? Like, I love this teaching right here around the compassion, because the compassion for like them and whatever diagnosis you're giving them extends to yourself and whatever struggle you're experiencing with your own self around trusting yourself. Is that landing? Is that making sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, that whole discovery of who we are, sometimes that's narcissism comes out of that, and insecurity comes out of that. But with narcissism is a state of suffering. And so to have compassion for if you're having there's some relationship where you're experiencing narcissism, whether it's on your part or the other part or both, or you have to have the wisdom to know where to draw the boundary and to say, and sometimes we need that for, like you're saying, like a season. There needs to be a period of time, especially if it's somebody who is, we have deep, deep, deep familial ties to, like a father or a mother or a brother or a sister. This is, your blood family. So there's deep karmas there. And yeah, sometimes it's so bad that you have to be like, have the boundary of not having that person in our life. And then hopefully with some time that can change if it's safe to change. But the thing about compassion is it's in the privacy of our own heart and mind.
Yeah.
That's the most important part. It's how are we relating to this other person in our own heart, to keep ourselves safe and to keep ourselves being able to, however we decide for ourselves, using our own wisdom, because we all have our own wisdom. Everybody has wisdom. And part of tapping into it is knowing that and trusting and learning to trust our intuition. That takes a little bit of practice, but it's nothing that we're developing that's extraordinary. It's totally natural. Intuition is a natural part of the human psyche, a human organism. I say organism because I think when sometimes we say psyche or mind, we think like up here, the brain, but it's the heart, it's the body, it's everything. It's the whole thing. That's what we are. We're like the human organism, the mind, the body, the organs, the tissue layers, the chi, the electromagnetic field, and the subtle body and the super subtle body. It's all an organism, it's all us. It's all our mind. And the body is part of the mind. And so when we feel this, even though I might have to set a boundary and not have that person physically in my life, and I may have to cut off communication channels, I don't want it to change how the love in my heart is for that person.
Yeah.
That's because that is in the privacy of our heart and mind is where it all counts the most.
And I find that that's, at least for myself, where if there was any kind of boundary, and then also like I really struggled with, can you set a boundary and not have someone in your life and also still love them? That was very confronting to me. It's not anymore. It was for a very big period of time. Like, what does it mean if I still love this person that I can't even have in my life? What does that mean about me? Like, almost as if that made me stupid. Like, to love somebody in my life that wasn't treating me well.
Sure.
And like, still love them. And so out of fear of being stupid and a
Right.
fool,
Right.
then I would also like, okay, boundary is set, can't be in my life, don't love you anymore, like trying to turn off. And that's where my suffering really was. Of just really, truly not understanding you can have a boundary and still like, what does that mean? What does it mean? I didn't get it.
Wisdom and compassion.
Yes, exactly. So I really love that teaching because it's like, that is such a beautiful practice for anyone that is experiencing mistrust in their own picker, mistrust in like what they're doing, mistrust in their choices or people they have in their life, or taking people out of their life. Because I know so many people moving through portals of that. And there's a way to do it that you are still deep in that space of love and compassion of, like you said, in the inner heart.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
beautiful.
I want to hear some more things about you. I want to hear about like, you said that you found this when you were 18.
Yeah.
Kundalini.
Kundalini Yoga. Yeah.
What was that moment like? What was that journey like? Where were you in your life?
Yeah, well, I had just gotten to this university outside of Nashville, like I was saying, and you know, I had grown up in South Carolina, and so just kind of leaving my parents' home. But as a teenager, I got into, you know, like psychedelics as pretty young in life. And early in life, actually, when I was quite young, I think I had quite a lovely childhood, relatively speaking. But then as I became a teenager and trying to find my own identity, things became much more difficult, at least in the family context, and just a young person trying to search, like me, this person who trying to find my identity in, you know, the middle America of South Carolina. It was a bit of a journey.
Did you have a beard?
Well, the beard started, you know, when I could grow it, really.
Yeah, so not quite yet. What was it when you were 18?
Yeah, like 18.
Oh, okay, great.
You know,
Awesome.
I think the last time I had shaved it, my mom wanted for like my brother's wedding, and I would just like, you know, like it was around that time. So, and I let it go ever since. Even before I knew anything, like I'd already had this inclination to like grow my hair out. But also hippie, you know, so of course I did. And I loved, you know, the Dead and reggae and Bob Marley and Burning Spear. These were my teachers, you know. This is, as a young person, that's where I found, you know, through music, really. And they're still my teachers. And so, but then, yeah, when I got to this university, I met this other, because we were there for like a recording industry program. So there's a lot of artists and interesting people there. And this guy invited me to his yoga class, and he said his teacher was like driving in, and I didn't know anything about. All I knew is yoga had something to do with like stretching, and it was somehow spiritual. And at that point, I was already definitely on quite a search. I've always been spiritually, mystically inclined. You know, I grew up Jewish, and probably if there would have been more access to the mystical Judaism at the time, you know, I probably would have gone really deep into that. But that wasn't the case. I found that later. But after, you know, I went through bar mitzvah, all that type of thing, like I didn't really have anything to do with, you know, religion at that point. But when I went to this yoga class, and I think my dad had told me like once about the Dalai Lama, and I had heard that, and I had at that point been reading all the books of his that I could find. And you know, I had come into contact, like so many of us did, with like Ram Dass, Be Here Now. And I had read Autobiography of a Yogi at some point. So many of us, you know, especially I think at that time. I don't know nowadays with the way everything is so accessible, because this is pre-internet. And so we were catching it through books, you know. Hopefully people still are.
I definitely am.
And so, yeah, so anyways, I went to this class, and it was in his, like, he had a little house across the street from the campus, and it was just in his backyard, you know. And
Nice.
the teacher hadn't gotten there yet, and it's like 45 minutes past when the class was supposed to start.
Oh, wow.
You know, we're just college kids just like sitting around, and like the teacher hadn't come, and finally this car pulls up, and like these other like kids get out of the car first with like some djembes and guitars and stuff. And then the teacher gets out, and he's a real interesting looking character. And I do this class, and I don't remember anything about it. It seemed like I remember it went on a long time. It seemed like probably easy 2 hours. And I liked it enough. He was doing another class in the park in Nashville later that day, in Centennial Park in Nashville, Tennessee. And I went to that too, like all on the same day. So I probably did like 4 or 5 hours of Kundalini Yoga, the first time I ever tried anything like that. And it left an impression on me for sure. I was floating. I felt like I was floating, you know, just kind of like lightweight in a subtle, but you know how that feeling is. I mean, it felt high. And at that point in my life, that was, you know, was very much interested in doing. And so it really got my attention. And then anytime that teacher would come around, I would go. But it was like once a month or something. He lived 3 hours away. And so he drove in. And then at the end of the class, he would pass a little basket around if anyone could give a donation. That's what it was. It wasn't going to a yoga studio, you know. But after a while, he was like, I couldn't, you know, I did that for like a year. And I really got into Kundalini Yoga. Like it was really grabbing me. And he's like, you know, I can't come that often here. And he said, well, you should, when you can, just lead the classes. And on the college campus, so I started doing that. And, you know, right away, it was working somehow, you know, and I had no aspiration for this. It just kind of happened. I was trying to be production. I was trying to learn production in the recording industry. And so that just took a hold, and I kind of no longer was interested in studying what I was studying. And plus, it was a university where you had to do all these like other classes too. Like you still had to like do algebra.
Yes.
And
I remember those days, 7 a.m. chemistry.
And there's no part of me that wanted to do any more of that. I'd already gone through all of high school. I was like, get me out of here. And so I ended up moving to Charleston, South Carolina to go. I was like, well, I'll do religious studies, because I found like the chair of the religious studies department there had written a book on Kundalini Yoga. And me not really knowing much at that time, didn't realize quite what that meant. And what I learned out is just like very academic study, which was cool. And I did have some great teachers there, but I just wasn't interested in non-experiential academic study. So all along the while, though, I'm teaching. You know, I opened I hadn't done teacher training or anything. I opened up a little studio in Charleston, South Carolina.
I love hearing this about you. That's amazing. You just like went from taking these in the backyard to like teaching it.
Yeah,
like,
and it just worked, and I loved it. You know, and the thing about teaching is you learn so much, and it really advances you so much also in the practice. If you do it well, that is, you know, with a humble heart. And so, yeah, then also I'm just trying to make it not too long of a story. As my teenage years, I also had like some pretty difficult health challenges. So that's also kind of what was pushing me in that direction of yoga and also Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is the great healing science of India and the ancient medical system of India, and it's still nationally recognized medical system of India, and the sister science of yoga. And so I started learning about Ayurveda, and that really caught me. And so I moved to California. There was only really 2 Ayurveda schools in the country at that time. One was in New Mexico with the great, wonderful Vasant Lad, and the other was in Grass Valley, California, Nevada City, California, where I live now. And so I loved the foothills of the Sierra Nevada, Northern California, and went to school there, and I haven't left. I live there still.
Wow. It's a long time.
Yeah. And closer to 24, 25 years now. And Ayurveda really was studying Ayurveda. I learned was actually, it's the science of yoga. it's the science of the elements of the body, of the all the things that yoga is developing is what Ayurveda is developing. They're just doing it through slightly different contexts. Ayurveda is a healing science, so it's using it to heal the body, to bring the body vitality, where yoga at its heart is the spiritual side of it. It is the transformation of the mind so that one can experience more and more of their true nature. And so anyways, by studying Ayurveda, it took me so deep into that, into the whole richness of this whole thing. And it really explained Kundalini Yoga to me, which I didn't go for. I thought, maybe I would be still like, I don't know that I'm going to be teaching. I'm just kind of going with the following the bliss, really. And so for a while I did practice Ayurveda, like clinically. I helped to run the Panchakarma Center at the California College of Ayurveda for a number of years, which is the famous cleansing and rejuvenation system. People travel from all over to do Panchakarma. It's a multi-day thing, extraordinary. So I learned so much of this great stuff, but I just love teaching. That always just got stronger, and still today gets stronger and stronger. That's what I love to do the most, is to teach. And so I've been doing that ever since.
Wow, what a beautiful organic journey.
Yeah.
Because I love hearing stories where people don't set out to, I'm going to make this happen. And then life is like pulls you into it. And so one of the things you talk so beautifully about is prosperity. And I imagine, I'm just making up, that learning how to create what you've created has taken time and belief and love, as it is for any business owner that's doing both online and also in person. And this question actually comes from my partner, because I was like, I'm going to talk to him about prosperity. Nice. And he was like, I do have a question I want to ask.
Oh, great.
Because he met you back in the day. He was curious, what was the thing you did that really clicked in prosperity and ease in your work world? And because I have only known it since I've seen what you've built now with the music and the studio and the like offers that you make. You're putting out. You have so much life force. It seems from afar when I'm watching. I'm like, wow, like he's putting out this thing and this challenge and this thing, and there's just so much, which I love. Like it feels so active and available and alive. Yeah. But as anybody knows who's created anything, like it takes a while to get to that place, and to that place where you have many students joining from all over the world. Was there a thing kind of clicked into place in your prosperity world, or something that you did, or a new belief that you created, something that was like different from, there was a before and an after?
Yeah, I think there have been, I don't know if there's one, I think along the way there have been those things. Yeah. One thing was to just, what I like to always think of is like put all the horses facing in the same direction. I have a Gemini moon, so I tend to I need to have many irons in the fire, and not to just be doing one thing. I get a little, bored if it's just one thing. So just my nature with that Gemini nature is to have multiple things going, and was to keep, when I really was like, all right, even especially in the business context or in the career context, because he's doing a little of this, doing a little of that. It was like, all right, what is the real thing? At least, what's the thing that is really producing the most energy? Whether that's the thing that's making the most money, the thing that's really filling me up the most, and really focus on that. And so that was part of it, especially early on. But that was once I realized that I want to do that and I need to do that, and that's how to concentrate the chi. because even the businesses are organisms. A business entity has its own kind of life force, is my experience, and you have to nurture and take care of it and direct it well. And if, you see it actually on the spreadsheet at the end of the year, you can see how much energy came in and how much energy went out in the form of numbers.
Yes.
But money, it's not a physical thing. Money's an energy circulation. And so then it took a number of years to actually be able to functionally do that, because still have to keep this work over here, even though it's not really what I want to be doing full time. It's what's, paying the bills. But it was once I really decided and then became able to focus on one thing and to really devote myself to nurturing that till it can get to a point where it can stand on its own 2 feet, and thinking about things like that, I think changed a lot for me. And also realizing the other thing would be a niche will make you rich. And
love it.
And focusing at first, specialization in something. So, for instance, if like a new yoga teacher, take all these young teachers, they're not always young people relatively in age, but people of all ages, but people who go newly through teacher training. That's why I'm always telling them, those who want to teach classes and want to start to make a bit of a career out of it, focus, who can you serve uniquely? Because it's all about service, this whole thing. And it's whether it's about my own personal happiness, whether it's about the business success, etc. It's all about, can I orient my heart towards service? And how can I help others? And how am I uniquely positioned to help others? And so some people, they're uniquely positioned to talk to pregnant women, women who are about to give birth to a young baby. A critical moment of 2 people's lives, and more, but 2 main people, the mother and the child. And that's, so there's a niche, or whatever it is. And so when you can find a way to really, concentrate the energy in a specific way, it starts to penetrate. And then out of that, new things will blossom and open up. Like for me, at first in the world of Kundalini Yoga, early on, people knew me as the Ayurveda guy. I didn't try to make that happen, but that's what I was into, was Ayurveda. And so it was like specialization within the world of Kundalini Yoga. It was Ayurveda. That just kind of happened, but I noticed it, and that then it starts to get a momentum around something. So I think in terms of prosperity, it's the key, 2 keys at least are service orientation, genuinely.
Yeah.
How do you feel inspired to help? How do you feel inspired? And there's all sorts of ways to help. Making music is a way to help.
A big one.
And so following one's inspiration with a way of, how do I uplift life? That's creativity. How can I add to life in a way that I feel inspired by it? Then that inspiration transfers. And it transfers to whoever it is you're serving. And then specialization. Try to find something at first. I think it creates like a spear, specialization, and then you can penetrate, and then people feel you. They feel you. They feel connected to you, and then it keeps going, and you keep following the inspiration.
Okay, so I've got another question.
Okay.
On this. What are your thoughts about being in this world of service, which I agree, like really being in the heart of service. And I think that how you serve can change. And that might be a place that trips people up if they've been doing something for a while.
It will change.
I think being awake whenever it does is really valuable. But what do you say about compassion fatigue?
Compassion.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
It's like fatigue from being of service.
Yeah.
And helping people, and then there's it's like your cup, the cup being empty, but it's like chronic emptiness of like, holding people's frustrations and fears and triggers and projections, and especially in the coaching space and world, there can be a lot of, when you do these intensives with people, you really, especially if you're doing like group work in these relational fields. I'm talking because I've experienced this before.
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, I'm having a hard time really caring because I feel tired. This night for a season.
Yeah.
And sometimes at the same time, like you want to help. And it's just this kind of hard thing where it's this genuine, when I was 18 and I started doing what I did, it was like, that's all I wanted to do was support and help and help and help. I was like, oh, who can I help? And I went right into anorexia support, like helping people with one of the most challenging things I could think of.
Sure.
I understood because I had my own eating issues. And since then, I've niched in so many ways, but I've realized that I've gone through periods of compassion fatigue where it's hard to support and serve genuinely because I'm, for whatever reason, like kind of exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when we have to turn that compassion to ourselves and take care of ourselves. And if one has the ability to, we're fortunate if we're in the position where we can step away and take care of ourselves. If we live a life like that, which, I'm fortunate to have a life like that. I don't live somewhere where, it's wars happening or there's people suffering from famine, which many places in the world are like that. And I always try to keep that into perspective, even though I struggle to do that because it's not my reality. And so if we do, but I think of that in general, if we do have the ability to nourish ourselves and nurture ourselves, we must. And we have to take care of ourselves and find a way to make sure that we're being compassionate to ourselves. And that can also just be an inner experience, if nothing else. Maybe we don't have the ability to take a sabbatical, or even take a bath. But we can always have compassion towards ourselves by just acknowledging our own predicament and acknowledging that if I'm having compassion fatigue, so to speak, then I myself am suffering and need and am very much deserving of my own compassion, compassion for my own body, compassion for my own predicament. And sometimes you don't know the answer to anything, and compassion for that. I don't know what to do. You just need to cry, or you need to lay down and then reassess things. But first go through that grief, go through that grief without trying. And women, feminine in general, is so much more, developed at this than us fellas are. So, but even some of us fellas are learning.
Yeah, it's a beautiful answer. I think it's like so important just with everything that happens in our world and everything we are bearing witness to and everything supporting like our friends and then our partners and our parents. And like, it's just so much that is asked of us. And
it's fatigue of our body and mind, though. It's actually not fatigue of the semantic. I understand, but it's not really fatigue of compassion.
I was hoping you were going to like. So I was like, this is a funny phrase.
The actual. If you're talking about karuna, if you talk about compassion, that doesn't fatigue. But human bodies and minds fatigue.
Yes.
And so our ability to kind of be good vehicles for that compassion, maybe. But that's why we need the wisdom side of it. The wisdom, because it's bodhicitta. If you think about it like that, it's not empathy even. It includes empathy, but it transcends empathy. Real compassion. It's full of wisdom. It's the womb in which the entire universe is held from the perspective of the yogis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the Buddha. And so it is like the very thing that turns the mother's blood into milk to nurse her child. It's the very thing, they would say that like causes the cool breeze to come across your skin on a super hot day, or a warm fire on a very cold day. It's the very kind of life force. It's the very sustenance of the universe, love, wisdom, and compassion. And so that's why I was like, well, compassion fatigue, but it's the human fatigue.
Yeah,
it's just we get worn down. We're tender, vulnerable creatures. Doing our best, and sometimes we need a nap.
Yeah, and one of the things they often remember and think about is that this is an insanely new experience for humans to have at any moment in time, this little tiny device, billions of people that are like,
Yes.
I was talking to John last night, like, just having like a crying vent about like it is so hard to receive people's online projections for so many years. And sometimes it's important to recognize it of like, wow, I've been taking bullying for a long time, and also deep praise and sweetness and kindness, and like I have a business because of the online world. It's amazing, like what we can have.
Absolutely.
But wow, the fact that we are able to like read the things we read about ourselves, or like, have people just disagree for no reason with you and argue with you, or and then it's become the norm to like have that and just delete it and go about your life. But then there's these moments where I'm just like, wow, I can't believe like just what it is not just my experience, though. It's like tapping into this universal sensation that's happening all across the globe of how everyone is connected to billions all at one moment. And what is that going to do to our bodies in years to come? Like, are we going to evolve in some way of like, is our shape going to change because of this? Like, I don't know. These questions that I have about what this specific thing, the access.
They're highly connected.
Highly connected.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like you said, it's not negative or positive, actually. There's negative aspects and positive aspects, and those are up for debate depending on who you're talking to and how they think about it. But certainly to me, it's very positive in the sense of it's both simultaneously positive and negative, because to be able to be exposed to all the terrible things that are happening in the world is important. It's important if there is a suffering, whenever possible, to try to do something about it. However, then we all feel helpless.
Yes.
Because what in the world can we do? And so then it's also overwhelming. And then furthermore, you get this experience. Like I used this example the other night when I was teaching, and because I've been a deadhead most of my life, and in the community of the Grateful Dead, if you actually at a show, you almost never meet anything but nice people. Deadheads are just famously good people, kind people, loving people. And cool people, very creative people of all types, not just this kind of stereotypical hippie version of it, but of all walks of life. But online, if you go into like deadhead communities online, or even like pages on Instagram, these are some of the meanest folks ever.
Wow.
If you go into the comment thread, they're just
wild.
It's like the same, and that seeing it in that, because that's relatively low polarization topic, the assholes in the deadhead community or whatever, versus if we were talking about, Israel, Palestine. So that's very difficult, very polarized. This is a great example because it just showed me, it's like this whole online world is not reality. It's in this case, it's some sort of kind of distorted version of reality. Whereas even if you have tremendous disagreements on really important matters with other people, if you can actually talk to them in person, you can normally get on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you doesn't mean you agree, but you can not have this type of nastiness in that we're feeling in our hearts towards other people, because as long as that intense polarization is there that keeps us so edgy towards one another, that thing can tailspin and really get out of control. And I think that's one of the real kind of dangers happening in what we're experiencing as humans right now, is that it's gonna be fascinating to see how this plays out over the next decade, really, because things are like getting to like a bit of a fever pitch, and that's not sustainable. And that's not sustainable. That will at some point go through transformation, and transformation sometimes can happen through implosion, and transformation can also happen through much more gentle means. Mm-hmm. Transformation can happen by becoming like opening up of awareness. Mm. And I think there's total possibility that things are going to actually improve in really beautiful ways. But we all have to be a participant in that. Yeah. And we all have to decide for ourselves that I'm going to make sure that I'm improving in really beautiful ways. Mm-hmm. And that'll then start. That's how we can help. And of course, other ways we can help too. And each of us will find our own ways to do that, because we can't solve all the problems. So I have to figure out, all right, what are the ones that are most meaningful for my life, and how can I give an appropriate amount of my life force to that, and then be confident in that. And then also, of course, there's so many things, so I can have compassion towards everything, and once again, in the the privacy of my own mind and heart. That's the most important starting point. And that'll guide us on how we can help otherwise. But we have to take care of ourselves. Mm-hmm. We have to. And so it's all of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're such nuanced, multifaceted beings.
We are. What are some of your best practices that you have, like to stay in your practice, like throughout the day? Mm-hmm. Like, are you boundaried with social media? Mm-hmm. Do you take your daily walks?
Yeah. I'm not so boundaried with social media, but I'm pretty good at, I have to use it so much. I have to be kind of in such connected world for just the nature of my work.
Yes.
So I'm pretty happy to be done with it when I can be, whenever I get the chance to be. But I also enjoy it when I'm using it. And so practices, my morning practice is my yoga practice, my meditation practice. And I also think of it as this Dharma practice. And one thing I do, and sometimes I'll do, multiple times a day if I really feel like I need it, is I work with what they call the 4 immeasurables, or the 4 boundless attitudes. It comes from the Buddha. But also in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the most important text for Raja Yoga, also Patanjali gives the 4 immeasurables, and that is what those are, and they're very practical. First is boundless love, which is the wish for happiness. The second is boundless compassion, which is the wish to be freed from suffering. The third is boundless joy, which is when there is happiness, the wish that increases. So in other words, where you find someone happy, you get happy. You're happy for others being happy, in other words. And also in yourself, when you're finding some of your own happiness, these are practices. And the fourth is called boundless equanimity, in that you extend that beyond just your likes and dislikes. So how that can work and how I use it is when I have get up and I have my little ritual where I think rituals are important, because rituals help us to carve out a little bit of time and space to do this type of inner work. And to the work of our hearts. So first, I just, again, start with myself before I'm trying to extend this to others. I just think to myself how much I want to be happy. I just recognize that, and I just take a moment to actually feel how much I really want to be happy. And have the conditions for happiness. That's the other part of each of these. And happy is not just the pleasures are coming my way. Happy is regardless of pleasures and pains, that I'm experiencing a happiness that can stand the test of time. So that therefore I must have the conditions for happiness. So I think about how much I want to be happy and how much I wish to have the conditions for real happiness. Those are not outer conditions, by the way. It's not, I found my man or found my woman. Those aren't the condition. That's not what it's referring to. The conditions are, regardless of if I found that or that I found it and then it goes away, which I've experienced, that the happiness swells in both situations. How can that be? It's real happiness. Second is I think about how I am suffering and how I wish to not suffer. And so I wish to have freedom from suffering and the conditions for freedom for suffering. And then the third is I also count my blessings. I'm pretty happy, and I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful for so many things. And even if you can start with you have some food to eat or whatever, you can start very simple. If you're not grateful for much of anything, you're grateful to you're not dead. You're grateful that something, you got to find something and start there and focus on it. And then more grateful things will show up. So you count your blessings, and that wish is, how I say it is may that cup overflow. May that's joy. And then the fourth is boundless equanimity. And in this case, is I include all parts of me, all the parts of me that I like or I don't like, or that I'm insecure or confident, all of it is included in my wishes. That's how I apply the boundless equanimity to me as a person, as my own individual. Then you go to others. And so the next part of this practice is then you think of somebody you love, tremendously. You just find one person is all you need. Somebody you would love so much that even the thought of them having to suffer will make your heart swell with compassion and make you feel intense compassion. And the Tantric Buddhist practices, they'll even visualize, their own mother and going through tremendous suffering, actually, in order to arouse an intense feeling of compassion.
They will imagine it?
Yeah. Even past lives, they'll imagine their mother as a deer in a past lifetime being chased by the hunter. Wow. And then the hunter takes the arrow and pierces and then comes up to her and as the deer with the knife and slits the throat. And
that's very detailed.
Yeah, well, that
is it. That's the practice?
Well, that's one example of very intricate stuff. That's probably a very masculine way of going about it. A lot of those are Buddhist monks who are devout their whole life to arousing compassion, and so that's but the idea is there, and the idea is simply to. You think of somebody first that you love, like your own mother, your beautiful animal friends like our dogs or cats or whatever. Because maybe at the moment no humans are doing it for you. Because the idea is just to connect to your heart is only thing we're trying to do right now. and to think of someone you love, and even the thought of having them suffered, or have to suffer, or them suffering, makes you feel naturally compassion. So first you think how much you wish them to be happy and to have the real conditions for happiness. And then you wish how much you wish they don't ever have to suffer and to have the conditions to never have to actually suffer. And that, of course, the conditions part, that takes you down the whole path of yoga. Because then you got to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And then the third is and then you think about how they do have some happy, and they are so beautiful, and and you want that to overflow, and you include all parts of them in that. And then just to tie this practice up, it doesn't take this long actually. Then you can, if you really feel good, you can think about an adversary. Because first, what you've done now, because you went to that beloved of yours, and you went through it, now you got active compassion. Then you try to transfer it to someone you don't normally feel compassion for. And you wish for them to feel happy and have this is where the work is. Because again, this doesn't mean you don't have wisdom of boundaries. I would never let that person in my space. But I will wish them the conditions for real happiness, because they would never be my enemy or anyone else's if they were truly happy. Because we only cause other people suffering from our own suffering.
Yeah.
And I wish them to never have to really suffer, because they'll cease to cause me suffering, and we'll both benefit. And then wherever they have real happiness, some genuine real, when we say happiness, we mean genuine good heart, then may that overflow. And so that's the boundless equanimity part, is now you're extending your heart beyond your circle of resonance. And you're saying that I will have compassion to my enemy. If you don't want enemies, don't have friends. Two sides of the same coin. It's just everyone has some adversarial energy in their life, and sometimes more than others. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes your own lover is your enemy for an hour.
Yeah.
Or maybe sometimes even a couple days, if it's some bad argument.
Yeah.
And then if you have this practice, you can try to, when you feel safe enough, you have to feel safe. When you feel safe in your heart, to extend it towards an adversary. And that's a practice that I do on a daily basis. And it's just called arousing the bodhicitta.
I love that. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever like paired yoga with compassion to the adversary. I was like, I don't know, I was probably 24, and I was in a yoga class, and we did a back bend. And in the back bend, with your heart exposed, she said, if you want to say, I set you free, I set you free, I set you free, to someone in your life that you're having hardship with, go ahead and do that. And I was like, okay.
Right.
I was like, you pray. And I remember feeling like, wow, something just kind of shifted there.
Yeah.
And, such a simple practice. And every time I go into a back bend now, there's like some kind of offering
cool.
I want to do.
That's beautiful.
Heart is so exposed, and it's like,
right.
I'm opening so much. There's a little bit of a pain, but it feels good. And
it does feel good.
It's the pairing is so magical. We learn how to pair these moments in our body.
Absolutely.
So, coming up on time here.
Yeah.
I have just one more question. It just came up, so I guess I have to ask it. It's kind of a big one. But whatever comes through you and your answer to this, I'm just very deeply curious what you would say. So there's this phrase that a lot of people say, which is, I don't feel safe. You just said, you're just talking about that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so curious. What is that? When we are, I know what it is, that there's felt memory of the past, of something that wasn't safe.
Yeah.
But as adults, a lot of the times we are incredibly safe. It's more so that we're just feeling a feeling that we don't like. And it makes us not feel safe. But a lot of times what I realize is that this can be a crutch to not actually expanding. Like, I don't feel safe. And so people choose not to ask out someone that they like, or participate fully in a program, or make funny sounds, because it just doesn't feel safe. But the reality is that there's kind of a prison that they keep themselves in based off of old memories or fears of the future.
Yeah.
And perhaps through a lens yogically,
Sure.
what does it offer us when we learn how to create that safety in our bodies?
Yeah. That's a great question. And first of all, I feel like any of those types of things, like I feel safe or feel comfortable, they're not something we want to be stuck in one way or another, because, well, of course, we'd love to always feel safe, and we can develop that to a certain degree, I think, relatively so. However, when you can, it's easy. And I think when you say like kind of being in a prison of something, that's when now somehow we've kind of got stuck in a certain disposition where everything has its season. And so when you're actively involved in taking care of yourself, not feeling safe is never a permanent thing. It's something that is in process. If you go through something that creates like tremendous grief, for instance, like a loved one passing away, marriage ending, that takes a long amount of time relatively to get to the point to where you feel safe enough to open up your heart again, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But it should eventually happen, if we're taking care of ourselves, or at least we're endeavoring to make that take place. So what yoga practice does, though, is it really does put you home in your own body. If you use it that way. Now, there's the actual exercises and practices of yoga and kriyas of Kundalini Yoga. And I'm a pretty strong proponent of that. They do not do it themselves. They help facilitate some things themselves. But what they do really well is they help to facilitate a condition that allows us to do the work.
The kriyas, you're saying?
Kriyas, any practice, any yoga practice, meaning that, well, let's talk specifically in like kriyas of Kundalini Yoga, whereas like this kriya is said to like bring, help the intuition, or this kriya is to help with the flow of prosperity and so forth and so on.
Kriya is like a...
Kriya in this context, kriya, the word itself, comes from the same root word that the word karma means action. But the kriya in this context, all of the Kundalini Yoga practice is done within the context of what are called kriyas, and they're either exercise sets or meditations, or a combination of both. And they're how the practices are sequenced. They're how the practices are designed and taught and used. And so the kriya may absolutely, at some level, evoke somehow some flow of prosperity. I definitely do experience that. And definitely just doing the kriya will certainly help my intuitive mind and open up that part, just the breath, the mudra, the hand positions. So there is some sophistication to it, definitely. However, to me, what the real Dharma practice is, what the real work is, and where the real prosperity comes from, is being actively involved in our own inner transformation, being actively involved in opening up our hearts, being actively involved in not pretending like something else will ever do that for us. Plant medicine can't do it for me. Plant medicine can show me things. Plant medicine can open up channels. At the end of the day, we have to go through our own inner transformation. And so these exercises, the practices of Kundalini Yoga, they definitely can facilitate an experience where if you really want to feel even supremely safe, you can. Because it will connect you into the deep reservoir of what this whole thing, what you really are, what this whole thing really is. And the things that used to make us feel unsafe will not have so much power over us anymore.
Supremely safe.
Yeah.
I really love that. She who is supremely safe. That feels like a really beautiful.
Yeah.
essence to adopt.
Yeah.
I think that the power of the Kriyas have, I love what you just shared, that they give you the capability and the conditions to move forward.
And even some Shakti and some magnetism, but that doesn't mean that can't be like used improperly as well.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
This has been so amazing, Jai.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much
podcast.
for coming. I was feeling into. I think you're my third guest to my rebrand coming back, and I was just feeling that this would be a long shot to reach out to you and see if I could get you on. But that's amazing. You just happen to be coming into town and being a yes to this. So thank you for offering offering us such beautiful wisdom today. And I can't sing your praises enough for what you offer and what you teach and how you teach it, and the music and the artistry and the depth.
Thank you.
So is there anything you want to share about something going on that people can join?
Life Force Academy, we always got something going on.
You do.
And, we have so much great things. And every week, it really on demand all the time. Like what we've tried to do with Life Force Academy is to create a way that people can tap into this stuff and use the practices and get inside the teachings in any time. But then every week I'm teaching live in there. We have every year just incredible immersions where a lot of the amazing music that people hear in the classes, it gets created at those, where we have all the extraordinary artists, musicians I get to work with, including Simra and her whole band, primarily Simra and her whole band. We do a couple of these immersions per year, and if you can ever get to one, try.
We will,
because they are fun and fantastic, and there's a lot of magic that happens. So, but then we have people doing this stuff every week all over the world. Needs no traveling necessary, and we have courses on Kundalini Yoga. We have on the yogic astrology, etc. We have all sorts of stuff. People can just check it out.
Yeah, many beautiful things. Yeah. I'll make sure to put the links on the show notes for this.
Sweet.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us again. Such a treat.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Be sure to check out the video on YouTube. We're also on Spotify and iTunes. And if you really, really, really loved it, we would love a 5-star review on the Madeline Moon Show on iTunes or Spotify. We will see you for another episode next month.